everyone. So today my talk is about treasury management. Let's make it happen. My name is Jordi Ballester. I'm CEO of ForgeFlow. And today my intention is to explain you some work that I have been preparing around the management of treasury and particularly about the liquidity forecasting. So what is treasury management? There are two topics that lie in the area of treasury management. One is liquidity forecasting, and this is what we are going to talk about today. The other topic is managing financial risks, which is not particularly the focus. This is an open invitation also for everyone here to participate in the debate afterwards and to define where you have found the need for liquidity forecasting and to share your experience. So what is the need for liquidity forecasting? Why do we need to use it? So Benjamin Franklin once said, by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. So we need to plan in advance if we don't want to crash. Okay. So imagine a company that like one of our companies we're working on, what could happen? So today we have receiving money because a customer has paid us for project X. Then tomorrow a customer is paying because you have completed a milestone for a project. You get some good money. You're so happy. Then at the end of the month, you have to pay some salaries. So your projected cash is not so bad. Okay, but as time moves on, maybe you start to see that the cash is gradually going down. You have to pay more salaries. Employees need to work, need to get their money, but maybe customer projects are not coming, and so you're not getting extra money. Some projects are cancelled. So maybe at some time you start to wonder what's going on, right? And then the cash is less and less. You have to borrow. Okay, Houston, we have a problem. So you want to be in a position to be able to predict if you are going to get into deep trouble at some point during the year. So that you can manage this process in advance. Okay, so you are not faced with this difficult situation. Okay, so what does a liquidity forecasting tool could answer? So will I have enough cash to cover our day-to-day expenses in the next months? Do I have cash now to maybe use it to expand our business? Is the company in a good position to pay dividends, maybe? Declare dividends and pay to the shareholders? Do we need to adjust our cash in taking into account that maybe we face seasonal variations in our sales? And what is the right time if we have to make like big investments? Okay, so these are questions that every company will eventually need to consider, and mostly the financial people from the accounting and financial departments. So what does a typically liquidity forecast report would look like? So first of all, I found myself in this situation some months ago where we went to a large electricity company with a proposal, and the first question is, where is my liquidity forecast in Odoo? That's the most important for me, the financial director. And then I open the box, and then right? Maybe it's happened to you. You open the box in Odoo, and you find that it's empty, right? So it was empty. So what I did is I looked for what is in the OCA. So I found some interesting work from the ad hoc on the MissBuilder cash flow. It was very interesting. So I started to play with it and try it, but I found some issues that I could not resolve. Then this motivated me to just build something. Okay, I wanted to build something that would be specific for this purpose. Okay, and MissBuilder, it seemed to me right for other type of financial reports. Okay, so to me, what a liquidity forecast report looks like is this. So you have the beginning balance that always shows you on a time frame from now and then maybe next week, week 2, week 3, week 4, shows you what you have on your bank now, or you will expect to have on the bank or cash on hand in the next periods, as you can see. Next, you have the cash inflows. That is the money that you are expecting to receive in the periods. The cash outflows is what you expect to pay out, and the net is the difference. So at the end, you end up with an ending balance, which is used to fit the next periods. So this is as simple as that. So it can be static. You don't need to really add much more. Maybe what you need to add is detail, which we will see. Detail to be able to understand how is this constructed and to drill down with the details when needed. So this is the thoughts that I had. Okay. So, and then another question comes up is okay, so it's clear that the format of the report, but what data should I use to prepare this kind of report? So what is available in Odoo that I can use it to populate the report? And then the easy part is the starting balance. So we only need to look at the bank and cash accounts to get to know my starting position at a given point in time. That's fine. But then we have to construct the inflows and the outflows. So what information do we have? For inflows, so we have the customer invoices. That's an easy thing, good enough. So the sales order, the customer invoices have payment terms. So I can use the payment terms if a customer the invoice is due end of the month. Next month, the customer for sure will pay us. Yeah, right? Because everyone pays you at 30 days, right? Well, that's perfect. Okay. Well, but then, so there is an area of complexity there, right? So, yeah, as you start to think, you start to realize that life is not so easy, right? Okay. So what else can you use? Sales orders. Well, that's good because you have sales order that eventually will translate into invoices, right? So that's something you can really use. Maybe things will not be as precise in sales orders. Maybe some sales order will eventually cancel. So the predictability or the as you go into less certainty, there is more margin for error in the forecast, on the liquidity forecast. But certainly you could use. We could use subscription contracts. So if a customer is paying every month, so we should use this information. And we have the contract modules in OCA or in the new versions of Odoo, the sales orders can be recurring contracts as well. So this is information that certainly could be useful. Another important area, and this is something I was brainstorming about, another important source of information might be the sales forecast. And this is something that is barely used in Odoo today. No one enters a sales forecast, right? But it's a good source of information for many things. And one of the things is to feed the liquidity forecast. Okay, you could use leads. Okay, and well, you name it. Maybe you can find others because this is mostly what I found. So on the outflows, we could use the vendor bills. That's good enough. Purchase orders for the same reason. Payroll. Yep.
When you say purchase orders, you are referring to the
open purchase orders or draft. Well, it's not going to drive directly inflows or outflows, directly. So, well, you could think about cases where you will need to pay out something. Okay. Payroll. So if you have the fabulous Odoo payroll module, you could use. Otherwise, you can create, for example, draft entries throughout the year, right? To use as a forecasting tool. The taxes due, right? That's something also important. You pay taxes every 3 months, okay? But how do you know how much taxes will you pay? It's not straightforward. So you have to make some calculations to get to know how much you will pay in taxes, okay? So maybe you have contracts with vendors, blanket orders, contracts from the contracts module. We have the OCA blanket order as well. I also thought reordering rules, for example. Well, if you think about it, reordering rules are the preliminary to purchase orders. So if you could evaluate based on a sales forecast when will you have reorder, then you could anticipate some payouts that you will do throughout the year, for example. Loans, we have the OCA loan model created by Enrique Tobella. That is also impacting on your business because you have a loan that you have to repay. Okay, so we have to think about sources of payouts, outflows, or inflows. All right. So what can be the challenges? As we see, the complexity to gather all the information. So because it originates from many sources. And sometimes it's easy to grab this information, it's readily available. Sometimes it will be more difficult to grab the information. So one of the questions is, will the report be fast enough to handle all this complexity? Okay, so there are things that I was thinking about. Can I rely on existing data? Are the payment terms a good source of information? Should we use something else aside from the payment terms? If the customer is not paying on that date, can we renegotiate the dates and enter the new terms somewhere? Okay, because otherwise the forecast is not improving. Is the sales forecast good enough? That means that someone else has to plan. And then, most important is the commitment by all the organization to planning. So, it means that people have to spend time preparing, feeding the system with data so that the financial team can extract useful information. Okay, so sometimes it's very common that Odoo people is minded to use the system as a transactional system. So to report what has been historically happened, or is happening now, or it needs to happen immediately. But there is no much focus on what do I need to plan to give visibility to the company about the future. Okay, so the future, even when you can make big mistakes, is better to plan about than not planning at all. Okay, and make a big mistake as a consequence. Okay, so demo time. So grab your popcorn. Okay, so yeah. Oh shoot. Yeah, yes. Okay. So if you go to accounting, in reporting, there is this menu, liquidity forecast. So what you have to enter here is the date until you want to forecast. From today, by definition, to whatever end date you define. Then what you have to enter is the periods of the bucket size. Okay, what is the length of each bucket? So you could say, for example, I use weeks. And then I can define if I want to use all the posted entries or all entries, for example. Okay, and then I could decide to export Excel, PDF, view. Okay, I'm going to use a view. So I use the financial OCA financial report as the basis to represent this. Okay, so it is. Let me zoom in a bit. Okay. So as you see, beginning balance, and then we have the cash inflows, and then we can drill down here into account receivables. And then this section is extracting from the journal items on account receivables and is checking for the current weeks what is the total receivables expected to come in. So I can click and drill down, and then I can understand where is this coming from. Okay, and this is, in my opinion, maybe a place where I could start the processes to renegotiate the terms if I think that is not realistic, and to move this to another bucket, perhaps. So I would have the total inflows, and then I cut the cash outflows, which would be using the accounts payable accounts. Accounts payable with the detail, and again, I could change. Okay. Now, I could have other lines that I will explain later that could expand the inflows or the outflows, and this is where you can plug in. The report is designed so you can plug in your categories here, your lines. So as a result of this week, we expect this ending balance, which we should start with the same balance on the next week. Okay. So again, if we continue the same process, okay, we should. You're faced with, let's say, week 3, where we have an incoming, outgoing, and then we face something new. This is the salaries. The salaries is something that I added as what is called a forecast planning item. So it's something, the forecasting planning items is an element used only for forecasting that I can enter manually to feeds the forecast with planning information that is not yet readily available in accounting in other parts. So if I go to accounting, liquidity forecast planning items in the menu, I can enter, in this case, for example, slip Pedro, okay, November, okay. So the payslip for November for one of the employees. I can specify the planning group, so to classify the type of inbound or ingoing or outgoing flow. I put the date and an amount and an expiry date. I will explain about the expiry date. But as you can see, you feel the need that to enter the payslip for the whole year. So you could enter 12 lines for your planned outgoing payments throughout the year, and so you don't have to enter them manually. The journal entries can be done at a later stage when the actual payslip is computed and posted. Now, the expiry date is important because when you add this planning element is because the actual transaction has not happened. The expiry date is used to so that the system will not use this planning element anymore on a due date that you define, this expiry date, because you anticipate that by that date, someone will have already posted the actual transaction. So you plan, but then as the reality comes, the plan goes away, and the actual is reflected instead. Okay, so that is the reasoning of the introducing an expiry date. Okay, so then as we can see, then this was an outflow. If I would define in the configuration in liquidity forecast planning groups, I can define new groups so that in the report, it's more clear to me. It's more easy for me to see what is the nature of the in and out flows. All right. Okay. So with this kind of report, I think this is the basic element for a company to get some visibility about the future. And okay. This is something that I have proposed to the account financial reporting repository. Okay, it's work in progress in terms of it's pending to export to PDF, to Excel. I've been discussing with the guys at Odoo about this, and they propose a fantastic idea, which is why don't we export to Odoo spreadsheets? So having the possibility to have these reports in the spreadsheets module, okay, which I think is a fantastic idea, but it has certain challenges. What Odoo says is, well, I want to be able to export, have an Excel spreadsheet, but then also feed in information, extra information in the spreadsheet, but still have the ability for the actual numbers to be refreshed every time I access to the spreadsheet. I think it's a bit challenging. Not sure because I'm not very experienced on spreadsheets, but it's a good idea. So several weeks before presenting today, I also asked in Twitter, on LinkedIn, about opinion about what people would think. And I think I got very interesting feedback, like the ability to renegotiate the due dates on invoices, and what options do we have to do that today, and in general, I also wonder myself about how to connect forecasting with the liquidity planning. For example, taking advantage of the existing data, journal entries that have been created throughout the years, can I make easier prediction about the future just by using the information that is already there? If I always pay an electricity bill every month, the system should be able to just predict the next bill without me bothering to enter anything special, just guessing based on the existing data. Okay, but so in the end, it's challenging in some areas. Can be challenging to produce the future forecast. You should use as much as possible the existing data before relying on manual entry by employees. Okay, so questions, if any, please. Yes.
Okay. What about also having the option to select the line on the vendor bill? This way you know when the vendor bill has been created, for example. Okay? You should, one of the big problems is to make sure you don't double count, or that you expect your creation date and it's what your entry is. But if you have the option to select on the vendor bill, then you know exactly when that happens.
Yeah. So connecting with when the vendor bill, so it substitutes when this is. Yes. I think. Yeah, I understand. I think maybe when you enter the planning, maybe at that time you don't have all the information. Maybe you have the PO line, and then maybe you still don't have the vendor bill. So it's. Yeah, exactly. So not double counting can be challenging. Yeah.
What about use a level system to mark each invoice or each invoice line to specific it's like an analytics center, macro analytics center, what you are taking the groups or the items
marking, so how to classify in the forecast?
Yes, using labels also in other models, so you can make it the same to group all the information.
I'm not exactly sure I understand. So to classify and label the purchase orders,
For example,
but to show in the report separately, this separate group?
yes.
Okay, and yeah, maybe it works if you need to drill down, yeah, more. And
Yeah, we actually worked on a similar project. We took different diagonals. The first thing we put is cash flow measures as liquidity. We work on not on journal items, but on bank transactions. Which at the end of the day, I think is more actually closer to the day of the payment than the journal items. And then the other thing we have done, I think this answers with this question. We actually have for the cash in and cash out, we have worked with a tree of cash flow codes. And then for the provisioning, we work with what we call provision lines and reconcile model. Just meaning the actual cost happens, you can reconcile it into actual cost. And then we don't work with expiration dates. So it's a bit of, the problem we are accessing or we are addressing is the same. The approach is different.
okay,
And it's just, to
interesting.
give an idea of, it can be done differently and we're working on it. And,
Okay, that's interesting.
I think it addresses two of the remarks you've seen here is cash flow codes on both the actuals and the provision. You can put on the same code and then you can reconcile things which are on the same code.
Yeah, so you provision at the beginning, you say a purchase order and then you provision.
Yeah.
And then,
Provision, but you have to put a provision on the code. The code can be in whatever building cost or the code can be on R&D or whatever. And then when you have the actual cost coming in your bank transaction, we have a system of which is going to be a bit more difficult in other countries. System of automatic reconcile with the bank transactions. And basically, we do have the advantage that the electronic bank transactions are very detailed. So we can cover most of the reconcile automatically. And if not, whenever the date passes, then a manual reconcile needs to happen. So basically what they do is they just move the provision to like a week further or 2 weeks further, which is a different concept than the expiration date.
Okay.
The provision or a manual removal, or ideally, it's an automatic removal. If you have your invoice or purchase order, it gets paid, you have the references, and then it can just get reconciled automatically. So it's just another concept.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, we have an initial balance, we have the in and outflows, and we have a provisioning system with a reconciling.
Okay.
The different approach.
Provisioning. So I think what I remember that was happening was that when you manually, there are lines to enter the equivalent of the manual planning items. They were there, but they didn't have the expiry date. I think they were being double counted. And then I remember I had issues with the ending balance carrying forward the ending balance across periods. Okay. But I have to say that it was the starting point where I got the initial ideas, and then I found these troubles, and then I thought that maybe this builder was struggling with these concepts, right? But yeah. Yeah. No, I think that this is true because you have to add some level of adjustment to your predictions, right? So this is true in any forecast. What is the forecasting error that I will introduce by using this planning element? And I think that's very valid. The module now supports I made it minimalistic in the sense that it's only depending on accounts. So the account liquidity forecast also now is only depending on account. And introduces only the invoices, bills, and then the manual planning items. But then the plan is to extend with sale, with purchase, etc. So I think you need at some point we will need to take into account this information. So add the percent of error, for example, these kind of things.
And bad scenario, worst scenario, and better scenario. Showing up.
Yeah. So bad and good, yeah.
The weeks or the months or the weeks, but would it be possible to have like 3 columns with the week, then 1 column with in 3 months, and then 1 column in 1 year?
Yeah. I understand. Okay, I will type it in my to-do list. No, I don't. This.
How comfortable would you say, since I use the MIS cash flow report already for my own purposes, I'd like to have used this yesterday because it's got the expiry date on the lines. I gather it's not that much of a problem to have one of my colleagues move this to 14, for example?
Yeah, I think it's quite straightforward. If I remember correctly, I was using the ability to drill down on the details on the report relies on something that was in the account financial report. So having this link, okay. So it's a kind of a JavaScript element introduced to be able to do that. So in order to backport, you would need to reuse also these JavaScript elements. Otherwise, it's quite straightforward. So it's about checking how it was done in 14, then copying the same concept, and that's it. Okay. Yep.
Do you think about different currencies?
No, that's true. So I didn't think about that. I assume that everything would be translated to company currency. Otherwise, how do you reconcile together? It's different. And also, when you start to think what currency or what bank, it starts to get messy because sometimes currency have changed. So some transaction is purchased in dollars, it's paid in euros. Well, at least. Yeah. Life is not that simple.
So you have a different problem actually. If you have many transactions, then you have to report the actuals. With many transactions, if you have like half in dollar and quarter in yen and then part in euro, for the same time report, you might go to 100,000 of entries and do the currency conversion in order to present. I think we have been discussing this also. We currently stay only in euro.
Yeah.
Will be a serious issue if you do multi-currency. Depending on the volume of transactions, but we are with like, I would say, 2 million euros cash flow movement per day, and you want 50,000 transactions per day, the way it's working. You think that the dollar will help? Yeah, it won't.
No, but actually, that's true. The prediction on the currency conversion is an important in or outflow plan. One of the challenges or the key decisions is do we want, for example, to compute all the complexity and then create manual planning items, and then have the report be very simple in that it fetches only manual planning items, for example, or compute real time all the data. So calculate from the sales order, take what is quantity pending to invoice, and then get the payment terms, etc. Blah 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 blah. So the more complex you get, potentially the more performance issues you can get to extract a report that handles many transactions and has to guess the data. So one of then the key aspects is what is best is to produce asynchronously crons, for example, that compute and produce intermediate tables like these planning items that are used to write the forecast, or do it real time. If you ask Fabian, he will always say that never store, always go to the source, right? And he doesn't care about the performance. Thank you.